This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 223 with Almost Never Happened, recorded on October 15th, 2015. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.TV studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska. Fall Bellevue, Nebraska. Cold weather has arrived, and the leaves are coming down off the trees. And, of course, we post the show with world-class show notes each week, except the last 2 weeks, apparently, when I can't get a podcast out at theaverageguy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show via email. Just send that to me, Jim@theaverageguy.tv. And many of you have been doing that, so I appreciate you sending me those emails. Feedback, that's really the best way to get feedback into me, so if you want to do it that way, that would be great. You can also find me on Twitter @jcollison and reach me on the new Talk.to. Of course, wearing the T-shirt tonight as well. Talk.to is doing a great job of kind of keeping all our website traffic and conversation that we have on the site there, and so if you go out to the averageguy.tv, look at there's a little red bar at the bottom. It says Chat with Jim. It's out there right now. Don't do it right now, though, because I can't talk to you right now. But if you go out there, there's a red bar at the bottom. It says Chat with Jim. Chat with Jim now is what it says. If I'm live and available online, you can start a conversation, one-way conversation between us, and Talk.to does that. They're also sponsoring my trip out to Redmond that I'm doing here in 2 weeks, and so sent me some T-shirts. If you meet me in Redmond, so if you're a Redmond listener and we get a meetup going on, I got a T-shirt for you. So let me know, track me down those ways. Send me a message through Talk.to, but we want to thank them for their support of that. And, of course, the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, of course, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people you know and trust. That's just Christian, you know. So for more information, visit maplegrovepartners.com. Addy and I were talking a little bit about this in pre-show. We also have the brand new Home Gadget Geeks app for both Android and iPhones available for you. They're in the stores right now, and they're free if you want to get a good look at. And I told you guys, don't send me a message on Talk.to right now because I can't talk to you. So, of course, somebody dropped me her. Hold on, I'll join in there. See, it's that easy. I just joined the conversation in Talk.to, and we're in. I can't type to you, though. So it's probably Ken. He likes to talk to me through that. But we're no longer using Mixler because we switched everything over to Spreaker. And so many of you listen to us on the road, even live. The best way now to listen to the audio live is to get it through the app. It costs you nothing. It's a great way to do it. As soon as I go live, it becomes available to you, and you can listen to that iPhone and Android. On the Android device, you can even download the podcast if you want to. iPhone doesn't allow that yet, but you can download those. So get that. We want to thank LastPass. They sponsored that app, and it's available for you. Free. Give it a try. We'd love to have you download it. Go to either of the stores and search Home Gadget Geeks, or go to homegadgetgeeks.com, and both links are there. And, of course, Home Gadget Geeks is the part of Geeks Network. Find the links to this show and many other great podcasts out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Okay, we got through all of that. Let's introduce the guests. Mike Weger, of course, my co-host, and he is back for what has felt like 100 years.
Oh,
I feel like I haven't seen that forever, man. Welcome back.
I know. It's felt like an eternity, and ever since I dropped the live portion of my show, I look forward to this because it's like my one time a week now that I get to go back to my, the live podcasting. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been lost, like no podcasting, no live, no nothing. So I'm glad we're kind of back. It's good.
No, it's good. It's good to be back. And Addy, you probably know better than any. Addy's joining us again. She's been on the show before, so we won't consider her like a first-time guest. But Addy, welcome back to Home Gadget Geeks.
Thank you. I think it's been about a year now, right?
Has it been that long?
I think so.
Holy cow, time goes fast. We had you on a year ago, and you were actually talking about a hard drive in those days that had crashed, and all the guys were trying to work. What became of the hard drive story?
This is like pulling on my heartstrings again.
Oh, no. Is it bad memory? Should I have let it go?
Yeah. Well, I put it on the back burner because I couldn't find anybody to help solve the problem, the issue. It was going to turn out to be one of those take it to the lab type of deals.
Oh, yeah.
And having other investments, I had investments throughout this year. So I said, you know what, back burner right now. You never know. Things are getting better, so I'm hoping that I can soon recover that hard drive. But seeing that it's over 700 gigabytes, it's going to cost me a pretty penny.
Yeah, that kind of bums me out too.
Yeah.
We as a community would love to think we could find a way to help you get that done. I think we tried in the day. I think we tried just about everything we could.
Yeah.
As far as trying to get it done, drop testing and some of those other things that work with it. And I just don't. I think it's done, right?
Yeah.
I think at this point it is
It
done
hurts.
for you. Yeah. So have you in the year that we haven't seen you, have you changed your ways? Are you backing things up now to the cloud to make sure that never happens again?
Yes, I have a full Dropbox account with what I think it's 1 terabyte, along with 2 hard drives, as you guys recommended, not just one, but backup the backup and then backup. So I
Yeah.
have 2 clouds as a backup, and then I have 2 hard drives as a backup. And I'm more cautious about it. I even have it scheduled in my to-do system that every week I back up everything, and then once a month I'll go in my phone, my computers, and make sure everything's synced up again. Because I value the hard work that I have and then the memories of family, friends, of photos. So I don't want that to ever happen again. So I take your guys' advice to heart and have backups to backups.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. Who are you using from a cloud perspective? Where have you decided to go? Where did you land on as far as moving your stuff to the cloud?
There was one that you recommended. Shoot. I don't want to touch my browser right now because I feel like every time I touch it, it's
I
like
know it's a little sketchy when you start podcasting and you start moving stuff around. So we like Crash Plan. That's the one that we talk about. Was it Crash Plan? I've talked a lot about MediaFire and some of the stuff that I've done,
Crash
but
Plan. It's Crash
Crash
Plan
Plan.
right here. Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Yeah, Crash Plan's kind of simple. Set it and forget it. Backup from that standpoint works for both Mac and PC, and you get great. I assume are you on a Mac?
Yes, Mac.
Yeah, Mike's a Mac guy. Mike, who are you using to back up these days to the cloud?
I used to use Carbonite, but now I use a combination of a local backup and then Dropbox for my documents and iCloud Photo for my photos. So between those and MediaFire has all of my podcasting stuff because naturally they're my hosts, so they have that
Right.
and that's here too. So within all of those, I've got a good option. I don't have like one redundancy of like, oh, I could just swap it out, put it on a new hard drive, and be good to go. I'd have to resync everything, but it'd be all right. So.
It's doable. Us podcasters, all three of us do some podcasting, and us podcasters, that's super important, and to make sure you're keeping. And I kind of keep a copy of everything. I keep the raw copy of it. I keep the edited version of it, which can be just as big, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I keep the modified version of it and the MP3 version of it and the MP4 version of it, and you create some data pretty quick. And
Yeah.
Oftentimes you're uploading those to services, so you can always go back and get the final. Like if you had a massive crash, you could go back and get the final copies of things pretty easy. But it's those working raw copies that are important, because if you ever want to go back and do something with lossless and be able to do it again, you would need it again. Addy, I know in the year since we've seen you, you've gone through some changes with podcasting as well too. So I think you have a new show, don't you? Different than what you were doing a year ago?
Yes, actually 2 shows, I believe, since we've last talked. The first one is the Once Upon a Time fan podcast. I wasn't sure if I started it then, but that's another podcast that launched last year that's still going till this day, and it's a fan podcast. And the other one is the audiobooks.com fan podcast. So we talk about audiobooks, books, the book industry. We talk with narrators, authors. So that's really exciting right now too.
Cool. And so how long have you been doing the audiobook one, and how did you get to that point where you're like, hey, let's talk about audiobooks?
Yeah, I think we've been doing the audiobooks that we launched in late August, but we've been working on the podcast since July. So we've been doing that for a couple months. And the way that happened was that my friend, the real Brian from ProfitCast, yeah, he's well known now. They approached him, and then he said, you know what, they want a female perspective on audiobooks because audiobooks it's a pretty even split between male and female listeners. So they wanted me to get on the show, so we did the show. We've been working with the content we've been working really closely. I think that's different this time. Whereas when we podcast, it's like our idea, our content, what do we want to talk about, and what are we setting up the podcast to be. but working closely with a team and a company to represent them in a podcast, that has been a different adventure for us.
No, that sounds really cool. So do you have to listen to, like, is there a book of the week that you have to listen to be able to come back and talk about this? And how, if so, how are you doing it? I mean, what's your your method of choice for listening to audiobooks?
So it depends. If we're going to have a narrator or an author on the show, we want to be prepared. So I'm going to listen to their top books or their new up and coming book. So we do our research by listening to their books. What has saved me the most is listening at 2x plus speed.
Yeah.
I thought like 2x was crazy, but you can actually go 2x plus, and it even says on the app like it's ludicrous. It's insane.
Ludicrous speed. Are you finding that, and Mike, you chime in on this because I know for school you do some of this stuff as well, but are you finding that after listening at 2x or 2x plus that your ear kind of tunes to it so you can, at first it's a little difficult, but then you start listening for that, and then is it a problem listening to real people talk at real speeds? And then you're like, could you talk a little faster? I need to get this done. So how's that working?
Yeah, you do have to train your ear because at first I felt like I was having like a little panic attack, and I would even try to write when I was listening to the book, and it just felt glitchy and jittery. You don't need a cup of coffee when you're listening at 2x speed for the first couple times, but over time your ear does start to adapt. I think it took me about a week, and I think this is being persistent because again, how am I going to get all these books crammed into 1 week or by the time of an interview? So I think over a week it took me a while to calm down, and I can now listen at 2x speed. But when we're conversating, it feels naturally fine. But when I listen to a podcast now, it does seem really slow if I don't notch it up to 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had the same experience, and law professors are notorious for being slow and monotonous. So I drive to school, and the whole way I'm listening to my audiobooks at 2x, and I get to class. I'm like, we could get this class done in like 10 minutes if you guys talked as fast as I listen to my books. But
Yeah.
sometimes it can, when I go to class is when I notice it. Conversating, just like you said, it's not as bad. I don't notice it. But when I'm hearing people talk to me for an hour and a half, I definitely think it could go a lot faster. So.
Yeah.
Addy, what are you using? What kind of device are you using to listen to these on? So is it on your phone, or what do you have? What's the physical device?
So I do primarily use my iPhone, and I use the app Overcast. And the reason why I used Overcast, I know people are recently merging to Overcast, but I've been using it for quite some time because the cool thing is, wherever I leave off in the show on my phone, it picks up in their cloud server, saves it, and I can listen to it on my desktop, and it leaves right at where I left on my phone. So it syncs up pretty nicely. Bookmarks and everything there on overcast.com, both browser and apps. Android too. There's one for Android. Oh,
Yeah,
wait.
and it seems like that Overcast got a lot of press when
Yeah.
with iOS 9 coming out because they kind of hosed up the iTunes and the podcast, not iTunes, the podcast player. And we've
Yeah.
all kind of said, how great that podcast player is because the average person, it's on there, they're forced to have it, right, kind of deal. I did hear, I think I heard Dave say now Overcast is free on the iPhone. It used to be, but now they've made it free. Is that true?
Yes, as of a week ago. They just launched it free for everybody. But I do want to make a correction. I
Yeah.
thought it was available on Android. It's not. It's only on iOS. But you can just bookmark it in your web browser on your Android. Do a little quick shortcut. I would recommend that over any other Android podcast app because it was hard for me to listen to podcasts on an Android. And I know there's a lot of apps, but by far Overcast is one of the best. It used to be $4.99. Now he sees the benefit, like, hey, people need to know about my app. I'm going to make it for free for everybody.
Yeah. And it also, they didn't just, Apple just didn't, like, they totally changed the app, the podcast app on the iPhone. And so now you get these, and I'm pretty savvy. But to go in there,
Complicated.
it is
The
complicated.
front page, the unplayed section, the first section is completely useless. I think.
Yes.
I never use it. It's a terrible view. Like, why would I want to view anything like that? Like, I know what podcast I want to listen to. I want to scroll to it, tap the episode. So I hate that unplayed thing. And then the the view you get when you actually play a podcast, like it's down on the bottom and it's really hard to hit, especially if you're trying to drive and pop that up. You end up hitting all the things on the bottom. They made it awful. I don't know who's in charge of that over at Apple, but they botched it. They didn't do a good job.
Well, the Apple guy
There's
says
my
they
rant.
botched
Yeah,
it. They
my rant is
really.
and I still use it because I don't want to switch over, but it's awful.
And same thing with Apple Music. I thought that was going to be cool because it's a competitor to Spotify, and I'm a paid Spotify member. So when Apple came out with it, it made me think. But the second I opened up that app, I was like, oh, never mind, too complicated. What are you guys doing?
Well, and it's the switching cost.
Yeah.
It might be a great product for someone who doesn't already have a paid subscription model, but I'm the same way. I'm a paid Spotify guy, and I love Apple so much. I really wanted to give it a try, and I'm like, the switching of all my playlists and everything I've done in Spotify, I'm not willing to put in that work again. So they kind of lost me. I did the trial, and then I stopped. So it's that switching cost is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about, Mike, I heard you talk about that on Open Mic Night. If you haven't, you're listening to this podcast and you haven't gotten over there to listen to Open Mic Night, you might want to do that. That's a really good Mike and Colin talking a lot about the Apple ecosystem. But it was one of those things. I got there when I opened it up because I waited probably longer than anybody for the update on the phone, and then I got there and I started trying to figure out how to play this thing. I'm like, oh, this is awful. Everybody's been talking about Overcast. Addy, on the Android side, a Pocket Cast is probably the right one to go to for people on Android. And that is $4.99, I think, still. They may drop the price now that Overcast has dropped it. They may drop the price as well. I don't have any inside information. But Pocket Cast is the same way, and that works. That syncs up as well. So if you like that. In fact, hey, why don't we try this? If you're in chat right now, if you're listening live, drop in the player into chat what you're currently using. I'd love to get a kind of a feel from our community standpoint of what you guys are using or what you've moved to at this point. People do move around. I was an Beyond Pod guy, which is Android only I think that is Android only. And that worked great. I was so happy when I got on the iPhone. I'm like, yeah, I can use the podcast app now, and it does exactly what I want it to do. And then they just broke it. And so I think I will probably head over to Overcast. So to get back to your Audible or to your is Audible the one that's
what I
drove you to this, or is that who you're using, Addy? Is it audible.com or is it another service?
Audiobooks.com.
Audiobooks.com. And is that like the little brother of Audible?
It's not. They're not sister companies at all. They're competitors, but they have the actual branded name audiobooks.com, but it does get confused with like, oh, it's Audible. Like, no, it's audiobooks.com.
Okay.
But I will say this, even though if I wasn't contracted with them, I 100% I used to use Audible before audiobooks, and their app for both Android and iOS, and this is why I got confused with Overcast, because they are available on Android and iOS. Super easy app to use when you want to listen to your favorite books. If you want a book right now, you can download it from your device. You don't have to go online, find the book, pay for the book, then say download to my library, and then you can get it on your iPhone or your Android. It's none of that. You just say purchase, I want to listen to it, download now, boom.
That is nice, because that's my one complaint is to get a new book, and a lot of times I'm traveling and I don't have my computer, and I'm like, I just want it, so I'm having to do the mobile browser, and that's not working either. It is kind of a pain. Yeah, you're right. How is the overall app easier to use, any better to use than like listening experience-wise than Audible?
I have to say yes. They recently released a new version of the whole app on both Android and iOS. You can bookmark, you can make notes on your timestamp. So let's say you're 3 hours and 51 minutes in, and there's something that the author said and you wanted to take a note there, you can say bookmark this plus add a note and then continue listening.
That's
and
nice.
then it gives you those speed, as I was talking about before, you can listen to at 1x or 2 plus x.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed it's the same exact price, or I think it is like $15 a month for a book, same sort of pricing scheme, which that's nice. I might check into that.
Just about, and then they even have books on sale. So instead of charging 1 credit, it'd be like half a credit or something, or quarter credit. So they do have book sales, and then they have a huge library of free books that you can listen to.
Nice.
Yeah, I imagine those would be what do they call it, public domain books that
Probably. Yeah.
that are available from that. Yeah, interesting. We have not. I'm not sure we've ever talked about audiobooks here on Home Gadget Geeks, but it is a big part of a lot of people's lives when they commute. I mean, if they're not listening to podcasts, they're listening to audiobooks. That's another. I think that's kind of a lot of people made the jump from audiobooks to podcast when they came out, but I hear a lot of people listening to audiobooks when they get in the car. When do you listen to it driving? Is that kind of you recapture it in the car, or kind of what are your habits around? When do you find the time to listen to these things?
It's just like podcasting. The funny thing is now that we get to see their back end and get the stats of who listens to audiobooks, you're right. It's the same audience. A podcast audience and audiobook listeners, they're pretty much the same audience. So just as a podcaster, when you're driving long commutes, you listen to a book that you want to hear, or when you're hiking, when you're walking your dog, any chance that you get to listen to audio that doesn't require your full attention, that's when I listen to a book.
Yeah, although some of the books got some great stories in them, and you can get lost in your own head, right? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I should have been paying attention to what was going on around me.
I waste more gas listening to audiobooks because I drive around more. I just will keep circling the block until I finish that one chapter. Or this last time, hopefully no one from work listens, but I was in like the last 45 minutes of my book, and it was just insane. So I listened during work, and I don't know what I did during those 45 minutes because I was just sitting there like gripping my keyboard, not knowing what was going to happen in this like murder mystery book. So that I get totally into them, probably way too into them. They're fun.
Yeah, you can get lost for
Yeah.
sure in that. Addie, so if folks wanted to listen to either one of those podcasts, what's the right place to go for you so they can follow you?
Audiobooks.com/podcast is the main domain for, and then doitpodcast.com is my other show that has been on hiatus. So I'll just tell you guys to go to the audiobooks.com podcast right now. And I think particularly for this audience, I highly recommend, this is like the inner side geek of me, Ready Player One, if you've not heard of that book. I highly recommend it to this audience. It's such a good book.
I just bought it, and I'm 30 pages in. It's amazing. Yeah, I agree.
Physical copy, Mike, or did you buy the
physical
audiobook?
copy. I'm a physical copy person. I have a Kindle, and I prefer, when I'm not listening, I prefer listening. But if not, I like the paperback.
Oh, very cool. Addie, any other gadgets that you've kind of latched onto recently, or a gadget show, anything cool? We talked about your podcasting stuff the last time we were here, and you could add some of that in if you got cool tech, but any really cool tech you're looking at, or you bought, or that you're looking at? Christmas is coming up, so any gadgets that way?
I'm looking at, I recently got into drawing on my iPad. There's this app called, shoot, I think it's like a pencil, or I
Paper
should have, I
51?
think Paper 51. There you go. Thank you.
Yep.
So I've been drawing on that one, and it just makes my imagination come out more than actual paper or pen and paper, pencil and paper, whatever. And it has really cool effects. I've been using that app a lot, but I really feel like I should buy their stylus. They have a certain stylus that goes with the app, and I think it's like $50. But I know when Christmas comes around, it's going to drop. And I feel like my skills, I've been working on my skills of drawing, so I want to up the game by getting that this Christmas.
I was just gonna
Another
ask if you had it. I just played with one for the first time, and it's super cool. You would love it if you like the app already. It's a must-have. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. And then they just updated the whole app. They did a whole overhaul. So I think I'm ready to go ahead and start using the pencil that it actually comes with that you can buy on Amazon or anywhere. Another thing that I'm really looking forward to is called Dash Wireless. They're like these headset earbuds. They have no wires, so they're individual ones. And I think they just came out like a month ago or so. I could be wrong. And it's a 3-in-1. You can listen to your music. It also tracks, because a lot of these times, a lot of people are just kind of working out, trying to track like how many steps did they take, what is their distance. So it actually tracks that information as well. And then you can actually talk. So if somebody's calling you while you're working out or walking, you can actually push the button and it actually acts as a microphone. It's also waterproof. I've been doing swimming, so I'm just really geeking out over, they're called Dash Wireless headset.
Oops, say that again for me. You broke up a little bit.
Dash Wireless.
Dash Wireless.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link in
Yeah,
here.
drop that in the chat room there. Very cool. We are testing. I got Anir sent me a pair of Bluetooth earbuds that were sitting on my desk. I've got things piled up waiting to be tested and written about, kind of thing. And this is the hardest time of the year to get it done. But so Sarah came down. She's like, "Ooh, wireless earbuds?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Can I have them?" And I'm like, "You got to write about them." And she was like, "Okay." So she's been testing them out probably a little longer than she probably should have at this point. She's been a little slow on the writing, if you know what I mean. And so I've been talking to her. But man, those I was taking a look at those, and the Bluetooth earbud concept has really changed in the last year. I mean, they are getting so much smaller and so much better with so much connectivity. So these are actually separate, right? No wire between them. Separate earbuds that go in. And how do they stay in? I mean, how are they kind of fixed to the ear so they don't come flying out when you're swimming with them?
It looks like they have a different body to them. If you want to, you can buy accessories that does come with a tie so that you can connect them and somehow, I don't know, I still need to look into it, but I just know I geeked out over seeing them, so I'm like, okay, Christmas list.
Wow. Yeah, they look cool.
But they do come with
I've never seen any
accessories too.
like that. That's pretty interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
And 4 gig of storage too for music you can just put on them, so you don't even need your phone.
What?
Nice.
4 gig of storage?
That's what I read.
Holy cow! So they look like they're kind of fitted to the ear canal, so that they fit in like those. You don't see them in there. And man, that is. Let's see. Oh yeah.
They
So
are
what's the?
pricey though.
I was
That's a
going to say,
warning.
let's talk about price, Addy. How much are we talking here for these things?
They're like $300.
Oh wow. Well, so heart rate. Ooh, that's a good idea. Getting the heart rate out of your ear, because there's that blood vessel that goes through there that gives you good tracking, and then steps, duration. Wow. And I assume that they let some ambient sound through so that when you're working out that you can hear kind of what's going on around you for safety reasons. Do you know?
I don't know yet. I hope so because I find that very important too. Doesn't matter if you're at the gym and you're out hiking, you need to have that ambient noise as well.
Yeah, so for our audio listeners, bragi.com. If you want to head out there, that's what we're talking about, bragi.com. And they do. One of the things there says, hear the world around you, or swipe to mute it. So maybe that's like hey, I'm working out, I want to hear, or I'm on a plane, tune it out.
That'd be nice.
Wow. Anybody in the chat room
And
heard these?
says here that it comes fit sleeves. So they have one for extra small, and then it goes up to large.
It says shipping from October 2015 on, so I don't even know if they're out yet. Are they?
Oh, pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Well, I have to review them.
Yeah, I believe it was just released at the beginning of the month.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. No, I can imagine they'd be super expensive. Brian Hour says 2 PCs for Jim. I just bought, we were talking at pre-show, I just bought this $150 PC this week that to replace one, and so at a $300 price point, that can get pretty expensive. Mike, anything is worth thinking about gadgets for Christmas? You know, we're only 9 weeks away from Christmas, right?
Which I had no idea until fall break is next week for me. I'm like, oh, that means that I probably should get to study.
9 Saturdays till Christmas. That's all we have left. So we're going to do some special, if you're a regular listener of Home Gadget Geeks, we're going to do some special Christmas programs as we get closer that I have guests coming on to talk about. But Mike, anything you're eyeing at the moment as we talk about, Christmas stuff coming up?
Well, I mean, one thing that you guys talk about all the time, but a NAS, so some sort of NAS device. I think, but not technology-wise, but from a tech kind of company. Hannah and I are looking to not do gifts this year and get a new bed, and then we're looking at using Casper, which is that new company. It's all online. They ship it right to your door, and it's in a box, and you cut the box open, and it poofs out. I don't know. So we're gonna try. We might try that. We're not really sure yet, but that and then an Apple Watch is kind of what I'm eyeing. I've loved my Pebble. I just can't get enough of it. It just doesn't do enough for me. I've found out that I like it so much that I think I'm ready to make the next step. So that's on my list.
Addy, are you thinking about any new PC gear for, I know you're Apple, and Michael talked a little bit about this. They made some big announcements in their keynote, which feels like it was a million years ago at this point. So many things have happened. But are you eyeing any new Apple gear when we think about some of the new, laptops that have come out from them?
Well, I just recently bought a laptop from Apple, so I won't go there, but they did come out with, so this is my mouse right now, and same thing for the keyboard. It's wireless, but you still have to use batteries in there. And they just released this week, it was announced on, you can find it on Gizmodo, that they finally made versions of these exact devices, but rechargeable. You don't need these batteries. I think every now and then, I think I'm finding myself like every 3 weeks I have to recharge my batteries on these devices. So I think it's really important that they finally come out with these rechargeable essentials. Like these are so essential when it comes to using Macs.
It would always seem like when I got rechargeables or I was using anything battery operated, the battery would always go out in the middle of a podcast. Always. Didn't matter. I never came back to the desk and it was dead. It was, and I think what would happen is that it would be just on its last legs and it would give me enough power to get started, but then I would start using it on the podcast and it would just fail. So I've gone completely wired. I have been crazy that way. Maybe for the last 3 or 4 years, I have done wired for everything just because I'm afraid of that, right? It's one of those kinds of things that but I look at this mess on my desk sometimes and I'm like, man, it would be nice if this, and Mike is still amazed. I use this old school.
That is old school.
Yeah, I mean, how old is this thing?
Oh,
It's got to
it's
be
my
10 years
least
old,
favorite
right?
Apple mouse ever, too. That tiny little dot and everything. Oh, I hated that thing.
This thing, and I don't, and all my, I'm a Microsoft MVP, so everybody in the chat room is like, what? What is he? Years ago, there was a closeout at Yahoo, and they were getting rid of a bunch of Mac equipment, and my sister, her husband worked in a company that was doing a lot of the shipping, and he's like, hey, what do you want? I can get anything you want. They'll just let me take it. And I'm like, well, hey, get me some. At the time, I got a G4, which now is won't even run anymore at this point. But he got me like 5 keyboards, and the keyboards for podcasting, these are the best. These are the best podcasting keyboards you can buy. They're quiet, and they're just really solid. Well, the mouse came with it, and it just always has worked, right? So that's one of those things where you're like, why change it if it just works? So
Yeah, you don't have to stress about like what I do. I'm like, okay, do I have a recording session? Let me go and recharge these batteries overnight. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to have any of that stress anymore. But yeah, that's one update that Apple is coming out with that I think I will swap these out for something like that. Again, don't have to deal with that stress anymore.
yeah.
I ended up grabbing they're AA batteries, and the top flips off, and it's a USB, and you can charge them, and
cool.
then just pull them out. And it's not like you put them into a charger; like the battery has it within. So, and those still work. I think I just actually threw them away, and they lasted me about 4 or 5 years. So
Really, what's the name on them?
I think I just threw them away. Is actually my problem. I was looking. I usually keep them in my pencil cup when I'm not using them. I might
There's
have one
a
left.
new company as well that's making these really thin battery sleeves, and I think they were a Kickstarter or something, and they've gone mainstream. But a little circuitry, the way the physics of a battery works is that once the voltage for a lot of devices, once the voltage drops below, I think it's 1.4 or something like that, the device thinks it's dead, and so it says, hey, you got to replace your batteries. I'm going to stop working because the voltage dips. And there's still plenty of juice in there. It's just not giving that full complete voltage. So these battery sleeves, you put them on, and what it does is it continues to push 1.4 and get you that, and I could be making that number up, but continues to get you that last, or those that charge that's still in there. And they're saying you can get twice the battery life with these little sleeves. And then when you're in it, I think it's called Battery or something like that. And then when the battery does go all the way down, you pull the sleeve off, put a new battery in, and you get twice the so it fakes the device. It doesn't fake the device out. It just pulls all the juice out. It's making sure that voltage stays up, so that the device doesn't think. And I thought that was a really cool take on a problem, because all our tech gear requires the right amount of voltage for so long. Otherwise, it's like, hey, if you give me low voltage, I can't work. It's not like a flashlight, right? Remember those old days? You had the flashlight, and you turn on, and it would dim right down to nothing. Our devices can't do that anymore. Yeah, you would, like it's going to do something. You'd bang on the back.
I
do
think it
that?
works. I think it works. I don't know.
Shake it like the juice in the battery is going to do something different.
Right.
When you shake it. But so some interesting battery tech. I think those sleeves are $7 or $8 or $10 each or something. And
Not bad.
yeah, no. So I think there's some interesting tech coming out when we think about batteries. The battery technology hasn't changed all that much. I mean, we've gotten a little bit better and efficient with it, but we got to get our devices continuing to be more efficient. We did have a major Microsoft announcement this last week. I was telling Mike Uyghur that I was in the Chicago airport for this announcement, and thank God I could watch it. In fact, I watched the first hour of it waiting for my flight, and then I watched it as I was getting onto the plane, and then I watched it for the 15 or 20 minutes before they took off. And then, they say you're supposed to turn that stuff off, but Jim kept watching it, and I kept wondering, how long can I go on the plane before I lose I run out of buffer? I actually made it to the 10,000 feet mark.
Wow.
Right? And they're like, okay, so I switched over. At that point, it just died, and I switched over to Wi-Fi, paid for it really quick, and then logged back in. Some really interesting things coming out from Microsoft when we think about a new Surface Book. They have new Surface devices that are coming out, larger screens. They have new fitness tracker coming out called the Band version 2 that is coming out with it. HoloLens is launching with an SDK, so we're talking about augmented reality. Both of you guys are Mac, right? I'm the PC guy here.
Yeah.
Addy, let me ask you, did you hear anything from the Microsoft announcement that sounded interesting to you? And would you take a serious look at any of these devices that are coming out from Microsoft?
I'm going to be honest here and say that I did not know that they made an announcement.
There you go. There you go. Well, we have some work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in saying anything that I said there, right? When we think about some new, are you like their fitness tracker, the Band, actually has more sensors than anything. It's doing some amazing things with health tracking and stuff. Are you interested in the health tracking aspect of that, or are you going to just go with an Apple Watch and call it good?
No, I think I would go for something like that. I did try the Fitbit for a while, but there's a couple things lacking in it, and syncing. It wouldn't sync up properly. So I gave it a couple tries time and time again and just gave up on it. But if this has more sensors, which probably to me that tells me there's more accuracy going on there, that already grabs my attention as you were talking about that. And I wrote it down. Like I have a little notepad here. So
yeah,
like
Microsoft Band. They're not cheap. They're $250, but
Yeah.
it's although I paid that for this Garmin watch, so I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of the Band will do a lot more. Mike, did you follow the announcement at all? Anything in there that?
I saw your tweets, and then when I saw our Facebook post, I can't remember which one it was about the new Surface Book. So then I kind of looked a little bit into those sort of things. But I'm kind of like Addy. I kind of forgot, or I didn't know. I know you had mentioned it, and I had it on I saw it in a tweet like 2 weeks ago, but I had totally forgot until I saw your post. So I'm still reading up on like the Surface Books. Those have me interested because I think that's what Apple kind of maybe should have done, and they haven't done that yet. So.
One of the things I'm going to recommend, if you're listening to us, and this won't be a lot of people, and Mike, I'm going to encourage you to talk about this on your show next week because you have all the Apple fanboys, is if you haven't stopped into a Microsoft store, if you're an Apple fanboy or girl, in this case, we'll take girls, and you haven't stopped into a Microsoft store, the first week in November, stop by. Just give it a look. Look at some of the new stuff that's coming out. Try on a Band. Look at that. Now you can't get the augmented reality stuff is still we're still a ways away from that. It's gonna be super expensive when it comes out. But try on a Band. Look at the new Surface. Look at the new Surface Book that's out there. I think you might be surprised at the innovation that Microsoft is coming up with and where they're going. Now, Windows 10 is still half baked. It still needs some work. It's not. I mean, they have taken some steps back to get to where they're going with it. And Addy, you've heard me say on Ask the Podcast Coach. I hope if you're a Windows user and do not upgrade your production box for podcasting to Windows 10, don't do it. I tell people. And every once in a while, I'll get a note from somebody, hey, I upgraded to Windows 10, and now Audacity or whatever doesn't work. And I don't do it yet. It's not ready, right, from that standpoint. Although all the new equipment that we're getting from Microsoft is coming out with Windows 10. It's still a ways. I mean, there's going to be some really cool stuff. But let me encourage you guys, take a second, look at because Microsoft is a completely different company than it was a year ago. I mean, I cannot believe when we got Satya Nadella in as the CEO, I thought, oh, this is a big company. How much can one guy change things? And what's crazy is they're innovating right now like crazy, where Apple is not, right? I mean, they've become a little stale. Mike, you just mentioned. Mike, agree or disagree with me? Has Apple become a little stale?
Oh, completely agree. Completely agree. The iPad Pro was one of the first things I saw to them that I really like. But even though I like it, it's not innovative. It's just a bigger iPad when you think about it. So they've become completely stale on, like, they haven't had that aha thing, or they haven't had that just one more thing, the traditional Steve Jobs. They haven't had that in a long time. I still like their products. They're good, and I think they're improving on what they've had. But I agree, stale, and you are totally right. Actually, I did go into a Microsoft store. Is it Westroads that has it here?
Yeah, kiosk.
I was there, and what got me going there was the Xbox One. I was going to see what the price was on this new one that has a bigger hard drive, and I kind of looked around, and it was cool. Now, I don't think this was before they had this announcement, so before a lot of this stuff obviously is there. But I agree. I was like, wow, this is not, not your grandpa's Microsoft or whatever, however you want to say it. So I was impressed.
Yeah, I think you should give it a shot. Addy, will you stop by a Microsoft store and have a look? Have you ever done that? Have you ever been in a Microsoft store?
Never. I wrote it down again. Microsoft store, what?
You got out your iPad and you wrote down visit a Microsoft store.
Yeah.
They
Isn't
don't
that
have
funny?
Geniuses, though. I really miss my Geniuses. I like Geniuses.
Yeah. Well, I think the training, Microsoft has tried to copy that in the stores where they have the Genius, and they got the folks, and they're kind of close. I think Apple's customer service is a little bit better in the stores. Microsoft's trying, right, from that standpoint. They are trying hard. One of the things I noticed, though, what we're seeing, Microsoft does have some really good innovation that they miss on execution, and then somebody else just picks it up and makes it happen, and you're like, oh, that could have been so good. I mean, Microsoft was doing a version like the iPad long before they were doing it. They were trying to use Windows to make it work, and what changed it was when we had a mobile OS, right? When the very first version of iOS came out, that completely changed the infrastructure for it, and made it better. So yeah, let me encourage you, Addy. Stop by, give it a couple weeks, because all the new stuff launches October 26th. So for my Windows friends that are out here listening to the podcast, and many are, you might want to take some time off the week of the 26th and stop by a Microsoft store. I think you're going to see. Hopefully, you'll have one in your area. Check it out online. This is where the weird thing, though, what's happening with Microsoft. None of this stuff is cheap. So the band, $250. The new Surfaces, they started $1,000, right? I mean, it's like the new Surface Book has one that costs $3,000, right? And you're like, oh, what? Exactly what? Now, if you're a Mac fanboy or girl, you don't even blink at $3,000. Of course, I'm going to pay $3,000 for that, right? But
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. But if it's Microsoft, you're like, oh God, would I?
3,000. What's wrong with it?
Exactly. Isn't that funny, the way we're kind of conditioned to kind of think that way? So what I want you guys to pay particular attention to, this new Surface Book, which is really a ultra book where the screen comes off to be they call it a clipboard. And so say like you're working and you need to go do something. One of the things Windows 10 does really well is draw, right? That's this thing where you don't need an app to do it. It draws pretty well. OneNote's got OneNote now has great drawing integration, as well as Edge, the new browser. So I think in a year, when all that stuff is working together, Addy, when you think about your drawing, some of those Surface tablets are going to have way better. This is where Microsoft has gone way ahead on touch and on writing on their screens. Can't do that for the most part on any of the Mac stuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna. Go ahead.
There was a show. It had to do with, I don't know what the show is called, but it's these designers or makeup artists who make kind of the movie, design certain characters out of all these elements and stuff that they put on people's faces. They put a mask and then they have to color it a certain way. But every time they would look, they would show them drawing their concept on a pad. It was an Apple, it was an Android, or it was, I think, Samsung and Windows, but the one that stood out the most was a Windows device that they were using to sketch out their designs. And I was like, because I even went online, I was like, that looks pretty cool. What device is that? Or what app is that I can put on my Mac? It wasn't a Mac.
Yeah, yeah, no, Microsoft and these Surface have such great, and the new pens have
Oh
that
yeah.
1,024 points of. I mean, it's a Wacom in the old days. I mean, it's a big, gigantic Wacom tablet. That's a PC, right? And so
Right.
these graphic designers that are doing this kind of stuff, I think, will move that direction. Again, whether it's Microsoft or Apple, they're pushing the envelope a little bit on some of these things, and I just kind of like the direction this is going. I've had a Surface tablet now for a year. I haven't written on it maybe a dozen times, so I think sometimes we overblow that. For the average guy, I think most of the average people aren't writing on their stuff, but there are certain applications where that becomes very handy. You said yourself, you said earlier in the show that you like to draw on it, and so
Yeah.
that might be interesting. When you go to the Microsoft store in November and you write that down as a reminder on your iPhone, it's gonna be awesome. Just say it, Siri, set a reminder to go to the Microsoft store on November 1st, right? She'll set the thing for you. Go in and grab the pens and write with those. I think you might be pleasantly surprised, Mike.
Will do. Will do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jim, that I came to a kind of a realization last week. I was kind of enamored with these gaming streamers. They stream on Twitch, and all the stuff they do, it's almost like taking live podcasting on steroids, because they're bringing in their gameplay, they're doing overlays, and I was just really enamored with it. So I started thinking about what kind of hardware I would need to if I ever want to just mess around with that and do it. And I came to the realization that when we were talking about Windows 10. For a lot of those episodes back then, I was wondering kind of why my intrigue and my interest level wasn't as high for Windows and Windows 10. And then when I started thinking about hardware last week, it clicked for me. When I think of Mac, when I think of Apple, I think of how easy the software is to use and how much I love the software. I don't think about the hardware. But when I think about Windows, I think of, man, if I ever want to build a really powerful PC, I'm going to go on the Windows side. And I think of their hardware. So this week during the announcement, I was a lot more interested. Always reading articles on the Surface Book and stuff, because for me, when I think Windows, I think hardware, and when I think Apple, I think software. I don't know why. I know that's wrong, but it's just weird how I just realized this about myself and what I think about Microsoft. So when I went to the store, I think now they're starting to grab my intrigue because I like their new hardware. And before, the hardware was it was okay, and it's kind of hard to follow all the hardware with the Microsoft using Windows because everyone makes it. So it was just a rant I kind of wanted to talk to you about, or just something I wanted to bring up because it was interesting. I don't know why I think that way, and I don't know if it's common. I don't know if other people think that way, but it's something I realized.
I feel that way. I feel like any third-party device that I need to connect to an Apple product, it's always a little glitchy or different, pretty
Yeah.
a little wonky. Whereas more PC, Android-based devices are a lot easier to sync up, easier to use. So I do agree the hardware is a lot better when it comes to Microsoft and Android platform versus
Right.
iOS.
Well, you get more choices with it. Mac's got
Yeah.
some great hardware. I mean, I'm not going to lie. They build some stuff, and they build it pretty well in most cases. It's been interesting. We haven't talked about Google at all yet, and that's the third announcement that's sandwiched in between the two. We had Apple first, and then we had Google, and then we had Microsoft. Google's kind of right now uninspiring. I mean, they are leading the market, right? I mean, there are more Android devices out there today than anything. They just passed the PC in total number. I shouldn't say just. It was back in the spring, but more devices out there than PCs. Blah blah blah. But is anybody really, Addy? Are you inspired at all by an Android device right now? I mean, can you name one that you'd kind of go, I'd take a look.
No, I actually was in the market for a new phone, and I really was looking at my options when it comes to Android platform, Windows platform, or an iOS platform. And I just went with the iOS because I was not impressed at all with Android.
I feel that way about all the platforms for phones right now. I think phones are
Yeah,
boring.
that's true. Yeah,
For the past year, I
Well, they're
haven't been
mainstream, though.
intrigued by mobile because
Right.
they're mainstream.
Yeah.
They're all about the same specs, and so it really just depends on what ecosystem you're in. But besides that, they've kind of become boring. And I think
Yeah.
that's why you see, Microsoft having this announcement, and people are excited about, back to the desktop PC, which we all thought was dead, and maybe it is still, but it's still now. Oh, now it's fun to talk about because phones are kind of, they're boring now. They're all the same. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I've been that way
well,
too.
Android sales just dipped for the first time ever, right? In the last, 16 quarters or something like that. I think I saw and this is not the doom of Android. I mean, they're going to
No,
continue to do very, very well in all the markets they're in, and they're innovating. Samsung is innovating. I mean, they are the lead probably when we talk about innovation. There's some other companies doing some interesting things with Android, but Mike, I think you're right. I mean, for a long time we talked about PCs on podcasting, and then that became boring because we're like, I mean, how
well, we're just naturally
okay,
an ADD society when it comes to tech. We want
yeah.
just like we switch and we'll talk about something and it'll be cool, and then it's getting as soon as it starts to stagnate and just get a little bit stale, we switch. So now it's going to be back to desktop PCs and tablets maybe, or portable laptops. And the phone segment is still going to innovate, but it's not going to snag the top news stories like it used to.
Well, and I think it's more interesting. We like to talk about things that could be more than we like to talk about what actually is.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's just kind of cool to be like, oh, well, when we get here, well, you know what? We're here. we've on the phone. We've arrived. I think, Mike, you said it earlier.
Yeah.
Nobody's really coming up with. It's just iterations of the same thing. Nobody's really coming up with anything super. Not like when the iPhone first came out. Not like when the PC first came out. Not like when the laptop first came out. I mean, those were innovations that were, and I'm not talking about the big 40-pound laptop that DEC came out with in the very beginning, but those things that when we could finally carry a laptop around and it had a battery life longer than an hour type deal, those were big innovations. We haven't seen any of that. We're still kind of iterating on the same thing. So it's for us, it is kind of boring, right? My phone just works. I don't think about this phone anymore as like, oh, this is going to be so cool. I'm like, no, I'm using it in all the ways I should.
And
Right?
Android and iOS are so similar now. We used to have the battle of, oh, well, when Android can do this and iOS can't. They're so similar that there's pretty much no. My buddy said, oh, no, they're not. I said, okay, let's look at the number of jailbroken iPhones compared to maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and the numbers have just plummeted. No one's jailbreaking anymore. I said, you know why that is? Because all the features people jailbroke for back in the day were Android features, and now they're close enough that people don't want to take the risk of jailbreaking because, oh yeah, we've got most of the same features.
Yeah.
So they're so close.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's an interesting space to be in, and I've talked to Tech now. We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary of this program here on December 3rd. So if you're listening, a regular listener, you want to come out. Christian and Andrew are coming back, and we're going to kind of do. Michael join us, and we're going to do a look back show where we talk about the last 5 years. I'll probably pull some interesting sound bites from out of some of those shows and pull them together, but it's interesting. I've often thought in the podcast, and Addy, you can probably sympathize with this, Mike, too. You get to this point, you're like, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
Now, thank goodness. I mean, there is some things going on with tech, and I always find the real story in it is better than when we talk about like what we're doing tonight, or we're just kind of talking about it. I find that very interesting, at least for me. Addy, do you find yourself, do you talk about tech off podcasting, or is it pretty much a non event for you? Do you like talking about it?
No, I do love talking about it. I love talking about certain devices. Again, I'm into drawing recently, so I was looking at a couple tablets. One type of topic that I would like to bring up, I don't know if we still have time for this, but I recently bought a new Chevy, and it's a very economical car. But what the features have, I feel like why haven't other cars, or at least up-and-coming cars, made it available to do the same thing? Because I know most cars are being built with a computer. So I would love to see that people start making apps that can be a third party to cars so that you can do things like what Chevy's doing right now. From my phone, I can tell my car to turn on, turn off, put down the windows. And it's very economical. I did not buy a $40,000 car, but if car dealers or app developers, coders made it possible to say, hey, no matter what car you have, you can use this app with your car. Yes, you would have to download it, but I know it's very scary because it's like, wait, I just bought this car. If I put this app in here, maybe it makes my whole car crash system-wise. But if they can put that into the market, more accessible to consumers, I think that would be the new direction that technology should be moving in, is how can our cars work better for us and vice versa. And that I'm just really amazed with what Chevy's doing with their cars when it comes to technology, that I feel that most cars should be incorporating that too.
Oh, I totally agree. My wife and I we just like to look at cars just for fun. We're not in the market to buy one, but we go and man, the new features of those certain cars, you're right, not all of them have it, but some of them do. And it makes you kind of think even bigger picture, like, okay, I want my phone to interact with everything, with school, work. My dad's office he just gave me a tour the other day, and they just switched to where no one has a designated office. They are stations with monitors, and they come in and they've all got cell phones. They don't use desk lines anymore, so they don't have to worry about that. But they just come, plug in, and everything just is up and running, and they have a printer right there they can use, and you rent out a space for the day. And I just thought that's kind of the gist of, just like the car thing. You come, you bring your phone, and your phone can do everything with the car. And it's just interesting how that whole mobile, hey, I can take it with me. So how else can I use this thing? And cars is, I think, a perfect example. And I'm glad they're starting to get it a little bit. What are some of the features that you like the most? Because I always want to hear how people use it in their car.
Well, one thing is, again, I'm not car savvy. I don't want to get dirty either. I'm not one of those. I used to I used to own a motorcycle, so I didn't mind getting dirty with the motorcycle, but cars are just more complicated to me. But from the app, I can see a whole diagnostic of my cars. How's my oil? How are all the pressure in the tires? What is the mileage? And it gives you, as I press the button, it refreshes and gives me real-time diagnostics. It's not time framed where, okay, maybe a week ago this is where you're at, but you'll have to wait another week. No, you get real-time information from your car. And the whole turning on the car from your app, I think that's really cool. It's like, look what I can do.
Right. I bet our car is nice and warm when we get out to it,
Yeah.
The problem with vehicles has always been the production cycle takes way too long. So by the time they get it from concept to design, I think the auto manufacturers have to find a way to iterate the car, but the internals can all be changed out so that I could quickly, by the time I get my car, that technology is 2 years old. Now, it has to be completely different, right? When we think about taking electronics, just take your phone, leave it inside your car in Nebraska when it's 20 below, right? It's done. So you have to build more. I mean, everything that goes into a car has to be tested. It can't be consumer. It has to be high grade. I mean, Arizona would be the same way, right? Leave your car with the windows rolled up in Phoenix in July, and the inside of the temperature of that car is going to get to about 4 million degrees, right? You're going to smash and blow anything that you have in there. So the auto manufacturers need to think, I think, they need to think about the central core components when we think about upgrading. That has to be a standard. I mean, like what made the PC work? The IBM standard, right?
Yeah.
That's what, when we all agreed, hey, this is what we're all gonna do. The PC exploded. I think the auto manufacturers need to do the same thing and say the core components of our technology are gonna be this, and everybody needs to design to that, and you can swap those out and upgrade them because it's moving so fast. I mean, we bought a car that has some navigation in it, and today it's so bad. Like I don't even want to use it because the navigation's so bad. I should be able to pull that nav out, put new nav in, and it should work. But that just doesn't work today, right?
See,
I mean, even your car, Addy, right? You can't swap those components out.
No, the only manufacturer that I see making quick changes and keeping up with their time, and it's because they're still a privately owned company. This is Elon Musk's company, Tesla. They're always improving what they have, and you pay over 100,000, right? But it comes with great technology, and they're always finding ways to improve it. When he comes up with an idea, or the team comes up with an idea, they implement it as soon as they can because they know the movement of technology. You're talking to a guy who's making things happen on Mars right now. So that's the only car company that I'm seeing innovation, along with Chevy. As one of the mass producers, I'm really happy with what they're doing. But again, like this needs to continue to grow. And somebody brought it up in the chat room. Security. Talk about security in cars. That needs to be improved too.
Right. Yeah. No. Kevin mentioned that in the chat room. Like, this is the Wild West when we talk about cars. People are hacking them. They're all kinds of things. Mike, you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, I think that problem's already solved because what do we swap out every year, 2 years is our phone. So I think I like the standard idea where you have a standard. I don't like this whole Apple CarPlay or whatever it's called because it's just Apple. I want a standard that every car has that all devices, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, a phone, can talk to. And then if you think about it, you can put a decent today's chip in there, and if it's not doing the processing, if the phone's doing everything, and this is just kind of a hub to plug into, and it knows whatever you're doing, then it doesn't need to be too smart or too advanced. So I think we've got the processor, we got the computer in our pockets, and then they just need to be the hub that accepts all of them, not just a few of them. I don't know. That's always the way I've thought of it. Mainly because I still have a car that doesn't have a computer in it, so I don't think of the things probably that you guys think of. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
agree.
think right on. It's interesting. So, Addy, a minute ago I said, it's everything's boring, and I think you hit it on the nail on the head. I think the next great frontier is our automobiles, and not just what we listen to. As podcasters, we want Stitcher, and we want all that stuff in the car, and we'll get it. And Mike, I think you're right. Ultimately, it'll all come through the phone. Microsoft has this continuum idea where your phone is the center of everything that you do, and you use it as a phone when you're out. When you come in, you plug it into a dock, and it powers everything. I think we're actually really, really close to that. But I think from a car standpoint, same kind of idea. You bring your phone in, you set it, the phone in the car, and it powers everything that you need from a technology bit inside the car. And those would hopefully be a little more secure than what we're seeing in automobiles right now. I mean,
Right.
they're really having some problems. So maybe that's the great frontier. I think it's kind of cool. I wish I was 20 years younger. I say this on the show all the time. I wish I was 20 years younger to experience this stuff. I mean, it was great growing up in the 80s and watching the Silicon Valley grow like it did. I was right in the middle of all of this in the middle 80s when technology was just going crazy, and I watched the PC be invented, which was really, really cool.
See, and I would rather have that experience than what I'm going to have. Yeah, I'm going to get to see some of the cool new advances, but I didn't see where it all began from. I mean, I got to see kind of close. I mean, but I was born in 91, so I was, when I was growing up and when I was old enough to know what was going on, I kind of missed that whole era. But there were already computers. My dad already had computers for work, and that was pretty standard, and it was a laptop that he could bring home. It wasn't huge. So for me, I missed that whole era. So I think it would be cooler to be part of that than to see maybe in the future. So I think we're both envious of the experiences each other have had or are going to have in the future.
Well, you're just going to get 20 more years of technology that
I won't know how to use it. I won't even know what I'm doing. I'll just be tapping around, having my grandson, come over and help me out with whatever I'm doing. So it won't even matter,
How do you work this newfangled holographic stuff?
iPhone 2006. What
Talk to it.
Yeah.
Talk to it, but in my day, Siri couldn't do anything for you. So, Addy, anything else? I'm going to wrap it here in a second. Anything else you want to add before we'll bring this to a close? I think if you could stay around, we'll do a little post show. Can we keep you around for a little bit?
Let's do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, let's, Mike, as I bring this in, Mike, we can keep you around too for a little bit?
Definitely.
Okay, good. We'll let me roll out of this with all the things I need to say. I'll give the live stream some instruction because we're going to end it here, and I'm going to start a blab, and then Addy and Mike are going to join me over there. We're going to have an open seat on the blab. So if you're thinking about, like, hey, I've always wanted to join the show, but I've never gotten an invite from Jim because he just has never invited me because he doesn't like me or something like that, tonight would be the night to join us. You can join the three of us inside a blab, blab.im. Again, I'm going to put the link to it in the current chat room. So if you're listening to the recorded version of this, it's long gone at this point. You can't come out to Blab and get it done. We're done. But if you're listening live, stay around in the chat room, and I will put the link to the Blab, and then you guys can come over. I'll let Mike and Addy in first. We'll lock the final seat. We'll get things rolling in there. I think what you'll find on Blab tonight, so what we have maybe, I'm going to say 15 listeners. I think we could get 30 or 40 because people are popping in all the time, popping in and popping out, and it could be really interesting. So I want to give it a try tonight. Let me say this. We want to thank everyone for using the AverageGuy.tv Tech Scholarship Fund that we have out there. If you haven't done that in a while, you forgot about it, go to the AverageGuy.tv/Amazon anytime you're purchasing from Amazon. Of course, we make a few bucks off that, and I just bought Bill one of those USB Windows devices that's coming out from Intel. And so you can plug that right. Nice job, Mike.
Thanks.
You can plug that right into a TV, and it's an all-in-one type deal. It's running Windows on it, and he's gonna do some hacking on it, and he's gonna write it up and put it on the blog, or he's gonna come on it. We haven't figured out what he's gonna do, but we just $130 full PC. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's interesting, that kind of stuff. So Bill asked me, hey, would that work? We say about $100, but $130, I thought it was a pretty good deal. I ship it to Bill. He's going to test it, write, talk, one of those kinds of things. share it with the community, and then he gets to keep it. So that's how the Tech Scholarship Fund works. We appreciate it when you purchase from Amazon, so the averageguy.tv/Amazon bookmark it. That's the best way to get it done. Don't forget us during Christmas time. Super important that during all these Christmas purchases, if you want to support the Tech Scholarship Fund, do it as well. I totally missed the October newsletter. Just too much stuff going on here. But if you want to sign up for that, you can do that as well. Head out to theaverageguy.tv and just look for the newsletter link. If you want to get past newsletters, theaverageguy.tv/newsletter gets you there. A reminder, and Addy's out there with us on Saturday mornings, 9:30 Central when she can, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern. Because what time zone are you in, Addy?
Pacific time.
Yeah, so it's a little early for you.
7:30 on a Saturday. You're like, oh.
We see you from time to time. We appreciate you every time you come out. But Dave Jackson and myself, we're on the Blab platform now full time out there on Blab. We talk about podcasting, but it's just a lot of fun, great community. About 40 people now, 35, 40. Addy was actually the host, filled in for me last Saturday when I was driving to Colorado. And Addy, again, thanks for doing that for me. But Saturday mornings, askthepodcastcoach.com/live will get you there, Dave Jackson and me. And you can call in or join us on Blab. It's not really a call-in anymore, but you can join in. We used to have a old school phone number, but we don't do that anymore. I want to remind you, if you want to chat with me during the week and you see the light on, if the light is on there at theaverageguy.tv with that little red button down there that says Chat with Jim, give me a ping this week. Let me know that you're out there. It'd be great to chat with you. A great way to get me one-on-one, and just let me know. I will admit, sometimes I forget to turn it off, and I go to bed. So if you see it in the middle of the night, it's probably, although I've been up, I was up at 3 in the morning 2 nights ago. So you never know. Give it a ping. If I don't get back to you, I apologize. But want to thank TAWK.TO for that as well. And then don't forget to check out the new Android app that's available in the Play Store, as well as the iPhone app that's available in the, what do we call it? The App Store? It's just the App Store on an iPhone. Yep. We have an app out there, or you can go, best way to do it, homegadgetgeeks.com. And you just click on the link. It'll take you right to the store based on the phone that you're on. And so we'd love to have you do that as well. We are live every Thursday, except for the last 2 weeks. Sorry about that, guys. I know I just kind of left you hanging, but life got busy. And you guys know the deal. We podcast about 48 out of 52 weeks a year. And those were the 2 weeks I took off. And we'll be pretty solid through the end of the year. But we're out here every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. If you're listening live, hang tight. I'll give you some instructions here in a few minutes. But with that, we'll say good night, everybody.